Welcome to the Music for Transformation interview series, where I get to interview amazing people who use music to enhance their own lives and that of other people as well. So first of all, just hit that subscribe button now and enjoy the interview. Joining me today is Simon Pellett, who is a contributor on the Empowerment Songs albums. He's a guitarist and contributed to none less than 4 songs on the album. Now, let me explain a little bit about Simon. So he grew up in the south of England, but actually moved over to the US. That was at age 20. Met a girl and left the UK. So there's a story there straight away. Went to the US and has been involved in several musical projects, working on his career as a graphic artist as well. So an interesting thing about Simon is in his early teens, he suffered from anxiety and depression, which in his own words caused crippling self-doubt, virtually halting any confidence to join bands or play in public for fear of ridicule and not being good enough. Now, I can certainly relate to certain aspects of that, and I'm sure many of you can relate to that as well in some capacity. It wasn't until a childhood friend turned him onto motivational and leadership authors and speakers such as the incredible Tony Robbins, who's a big celebrity in the personal development world, that he began to work on overcoming his fears and seeking to improve himself in all aspects of life, which is absolutely amazing. And also now what he does with the entrepreneurial mindset and knowledge gained from, constantly reading new books and listening to podcasts, as well as obviously his background in music and playing in various bands, etc. He now runs a podcast called Music on Your Own Terms. I've been privileged enough, put my teeth in. I've been privileged enough to be on that podcast twice. He's interviewed me twice. And it's really about aiming to help musicians develop an entrepreneurial mindset, overcome that same self-doubt, anxiety and depression, and to build a community of musicians that work together to improve the scene with the mantra, a rising tide lifts all ships. And I love that, a rising tide lifts all ships. So thank you so much for being on this interview today, Simon.
Oh, thank you. It's good to be here.
Brilliant. So first of all, let me ask you a question then, just generally about music. A very open question. What does music mean to you then? How important is music in your life?
I mean, that's the question I ask every episode on my own podcast. So, I mean, what would we do without music, to be honest? I mean, it's in every part of what we do. You'd notice it if it wasn't there. I mean, to me, I mean, what it means is basically everything. I mean, it's helped me get through, down periods, loss, grief, that kind of thing. It has the ability to change moods. It basically, it's the soundtrack to life. I mean, there's so many ways I could go with that question. It's such a huge question. That's why I ask it on my podcast. But I mean, it's something I need to do. It's not something that's just there. It's like, that's everything basically.
What makes you, I mean, there's a great answer and I totally agree with all of those things. What makes you need to do it then for you? Why is music, got to be a critical part of your life?
I mean, I think partly because it's such a universal language that I think I'll answer this. We've lost Eddie Van Halen recently, and there's been a few large artists that we've lost, and there's such an outpouring of love. Neil Peart from Rush is another one. The way I'd answer it is basically it. We often we think about why we're so affected by someone's loss, even though they're a person we don't know. And I think the reason being is partly because we have been connected with these people so intricately. Music is an emotional outlet. And it's a very, very personal thing to get out. And when people listen to it and they really connect with it, they're basically getting to know you on a different level. And I think the reason why we're so affected by the loss of Eddie Van Halen or whoever, big celebrity, it doesn't have to be a celebrity, some musical artist, is because you're knowing them on a deeper level. And I think the reason that's basically the reason why I need to do it is because it gets, my emotion out. It communicates what I can't put into words. Yeah.
That's amazing. Great answer. So many good points there. And I think when you get a big artist, I think music, there's so many different aspects of it. Some people relate more to the lyrics. Obviously, the lyrics have been important. The empowerment songs albums. Some people, it's more about just the melody of the song, or how it makes them feel, the actual style of music, how it makes them feel. For some people, they love to know all about the backgrounds of the artists as well, So, my wife is, very much interested in, so who are they married to and how many kids they've got, all of those sort of things. So there's so many different aspects for some people, such as yourself, I imagine, a big part of it is how do they play that riff? How do they play that guitar? You're looking at the technical point of music as well. So there's so many different things, isn't there? You use the expression about self-expression. You use that phrase. Have you actually written songs, Simon, or have you just been involved in other people? Because I'm very aware that self-expression is really important to me as a songwriter. I can literally write the lyrics as well as the tune and the melody. I can literally write the lyrics, pouring out of my heart about whatever I want to say. But self-expression is also very relevant to guitarists and musicians, etc. So would you sort of comment a little bit more on that in terms of what self-expression means to you, how you sort of express yourself, and also, just answer that question in terms of, do you actually write songs, or is it just that you're expressing your own way through other people's music?
Yeah, so I have written music. Nothing's technically released. It's the case of, tons of, hard drives sitting around here and there, lyric sheets. It's definitely on my list of stuff to do. To actually get some music out there. But I think, on top, aside from that, self-expression is not necessarily a case of writing per se. It's about, I think it's more the vibration of the, the sound waves, which can itself be healing. I think it's just a case of, like I'm into death metal, for instance, and I think, it's very aggressive music, but there's a lot of catharsis in that. So self-expression to me is, even if it's just playing along to a CD or a song, it's partly the catharsis of actually just playing, and it's partly, I think Paul Reed Smith said it at a clinic or something I was at. The fact that playing an instrument is actually healing to you, because the way I put it is, it's almost like meditation, in that if you're feeling pain, depression, whatever the thing you're going through is, the actual fact that your brain is connected with playing, essentially a language. You're not only using your communication skills inside your brain, but you're also using your motor skills. So you've got at least two, possibly more, function of your brain that are actively, doing something that actually takes the brain power away from concentrating on pain and anxiety, whatever it is. And, for that period of time, it's like meditation, that you're actually not, you're just not aware of that pain at that point. So I think that more than anything plays into the self-expression, is just whatever type of music you play, whatever key you're in, whether it's major, minor, just the fact that you're playing is like meditation.
So many great points there. I would absolutely agree with you. It's like, you're in flow, you're in the
Hmm.
zone. I'm sure all us musicians out there can really appreciate that. Time can just fly by, and
Hmm.
you're just absolutely in that zone. A couple of things I just wanted to point out. And one, I'm not going to go into a long story, but I'm not into death metal. I like my
Hmm.
rock, I like elements of metal. I'm not into death metal. But again, death metal has actually served a purpose in one of the stories of my life. And I won't go deeply into it, but it involved me having to really work hard. It sort of in a martial arts setting, and I'm having
Hmm.
to punch this punch bag, etc., that someone was holding, this punch pad, and the music that they were blaring out of the speakers was just one of those things that really kept me motivated and kept me working really hard. So that's just one example, and there's more to that story which I share on other interviews that I've actually had, but again I won't go through that now. But it just shows you again that there's so many different types of music, and a lot of those different types can play a part in your life in some respects. And obviously that's what I'm getting for you, that music plays a part in your life. Can you sort of tell me a bit more? Because like you say, you've suffered from anxiety, depression. I know mental health is something that's really important to you, and trying to help other people through their mental health challenges, as well as you working on yourself. How does music really assist you with that? Does it assist you? Because I know personal development has been a big thing, but how has sort of music assisted you with that?
Um, Good question. I'm a little. I would say not in a way that I can articulate. I mean, it's there. It's definitely in places like. I mean, as far as personal development, just the fact that it's basically my niche. Um, yeah, I mean, I'd go back to just saying, how it's helped me emotionally. I mean, there's definitely times where I'm in a funk, let's say, or really down, and I'm listening to a specific band that's very, um, you know, melancholy or whatever, and at some point, oh, I should stop listening to this because it's pulling me down even further. So maybe I should go listen to something more upbeat. Um, I would say in terms of assisting me, just being mindful of what I should listen to change my mood. I wouldn't say necessarily it's helped me with personal development itself. Um, like I said, other than it's kind of my corner of whatever. And um, if I didn't have music, as far as my podcast, let's say, it could be visual art, but it would, I mean, for me, it would be some kind of art. But um, yeah, I just think it ingrains everything I do. So
That's brilliant. Yeah. And it gives you a bit of a sense of purpose then. It's interesting what you're
mhm.
saying about, listening to those melancholic types of music. I've spoken to other people who've said a similar sort of thing. If they're going into, it could be a little bit of a chicken and the egg type situation. If they're
Mm.
feeling depressed, they listen to certain types of music. And is it the music that's making them depressed, or is it the fact they're depressed that they're drawn towards those types of music? And it, like I say, it could be a bit of a chicken and the egg type situation. For you, is it the style of the music, or is it the lyrics that you've sort of noted when that you're listening to, or is it sort of both? Is it accumulation of both, that you find if you're feeling a little bit down and you're listening to certain types of music that might be drawing you down drawing you down further? Is it the lyrics or the style, or both?
So yeah, I'm mostly an instrumental type person. I mean, I do listen to songs with lyrics, and depending on the artist, I'll maybe sing along with it. But I I'm more concerned with the actual music itself. To me, the lyrics, you can get meaning out of lyrics, but the vocals to me are more of an additional instrument rather than being integral. They're like another part to the song. But like I said, I listen to a lot of instrumental music as well, so it's totally the just the overall vibe of the track.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. And I would agree. And although the Empowerment Songs albums, they're focused on certain theme with the lyrics, all to do with personal development and various aspects of that, I would be in total agreement with you. If it's just about the lyrics, then it's a poem. The music is the sound and the rhythm and the melody. That again is what music is for me. And then the lyrics are kind of the cherry on top, if you like. So yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. So you've obviously been involved in a lot of projects, and I can understand why, because you're a very accomplished musician, and you were
thank you.
First people, no problem at all. Well, more people will hear it on the albums, I'm sure. You were one of the first people that I contacted when I had this idea of the Empowerment Songs albums, because we'd already spoken, we'd already connected via a mutual contact or friend. And, I liked who you were as a person, and as well as that, obviously I sent a request to you. Could you share with me some of you playing? And you sent through a video of you shredding the guitar, and I thought, yeah, okay, he can certainly play. So it's really nice to sort of have you on the team. How do you find then when you get someone sending you a song? Because I know, for example, Hero's Journey, as an example, I created a riff and you actually changed it a bit and you enhanced it. And the first time I received that back, I was like, oh, it's changed a bit. That's a bit different. He's added a bit on there. But, I very quickly got used to it, and it was an improvement. When you get sent these songs, are you sort of finding that you want to change bits? Is that a natural thing for you to do, to sort of, enhance it a little bit? Or are you quite happy just playing it how it was? Or tell me about that.
I mean, it's totally dependent on what's been written. Like if it's a part that, I think that's part of a musician's personality. I mean, with my students, for instance, I talk about musical sentience. When you first learn to play an instrument, you're basically a baby learning to speak. You have to, a baby doesn't know how the motor skills of the mouth work, the vocal cords. Then you start building on sounds. Then you start building on words, then sentences. And it's the same way with an instrument. You have to build the basis of everything. But once you can start playing things and you know where the notes are on the neck or whatever instrument you're playing, it becomes like tying your shoe. You're not thinking about it. Everything is in your motor skills, it's all in your having a brain fart. You'll have to cut this bit.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Motor skills is fine, and it's automatic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's automatic. It's in your subconscious. So at that point, you're building off of that, and it's like speaking a language. We don't think about the vowels. We don't think about the words we're saying. We just rattle off a sentence. And when you hit that point on an instrument, it's that musical sentience where you're speaking through it. And I think everyone's personality is different. That's why we orate differently. Our inflections are different. And I think when you listen to a piece of music, all the music that you've listened to in your life influences some way, and everybody's experience is different. So, by nature, listening to a track and saying, hey, I would personally do that. But, if it's your track and you don't like it, you can say no, which is fine. Again, it's just listening to what's been offered up and saying, what are my ideas? Record like however many ideas I have, send it back. And if the person likes number 3, we roll with it. If not, and they want to keep it exactly how they want, that's fine too. It just depends on the situation, I guess. Anytime you listen to something, it's going to conjure up some kind of idea. So I like to, basically, it's the analogy of throwing something at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Absolutely. And of course, with any song out there, there's so many different versions and ways that you could do it, isn't there? You know, countless. You know, it's and that's again the beautiful thing about music. You could be listening to some heavy rock song or dance tune or something like that, and then you'll have like the polar opposite, which is where they've turned it into a really slow ballad or something like that. And that's the beauty of music. It's interesting, actually, you sort of saying about that. I think that there's a couple of things I want to say. One, very quickly, my dad was listening to the albums, and I'd explained that, you know, there was this guitarist, Simon, who played on some of the songs, and there was a couple of songs he was sort of saying, is that you playing there, or is that Simon playing there? Because we'll have slightly different styles, also a different sound, because I think we're playing through proper amps. I was actually playing through simulated amps as part of my home studio system, so there was a slightly different sound. Plus, I will openly say, and this, you know, this is me being absolutely truthful, you are the more accomplished musician as well, so there might be a bit of a difference there, but there is a difference in terms of, you know, our playing styles as well, how we might do a solo or something like that. But it's interesting, like you say, that we get all these influences from all these different styles that we've listened to, and then we create our own unique style. And that is so true about the world, isn't it? You know, we are shaped by all our experiences, but we've still got to be true to ourselves and live our own life the way that is authentic to us, haven't we? So I think there's a gem there of a point that people should recognize as well. Absolutely. Brilliant. Tell me about Speak My Truth, because this was an interesting song, because so this was the sort of country sounding song. When I recorded this, I had this idea of the tune, and I'd done a lot of the basic guitar work as a demo version, and Emily sung on the song, and she recorded in my home studio. And I don't know whether it was I'd thought of this beforehand, but I think certainly as she was there recording it, it became apparent that this was sort of going off in a bit of a country direction. You know, it just sort of sounded a bit countryish to us. And we sort of spoke about it, and we said, we could do with something like a fiddle on it, or, you know, something to just, you know, or slide guitar, making it a little bit more countrified. So I sort of set you that challenge, didn't I? I sort of said, well, you know, I think we want some slide guitar, and I want it a little bit countryish. But you did more than that. You created some slide, but you created some lovely little, what are they called? Is it riffs? It's sort of, you know, I don't know, but you gave it a real country feel.
Yeah, I mean, we'd spoken about that kind of pedal steel sound, and so, you know, hats off to slide players, because that's extremely difficult. So I did my best for whatever I could do, but what I think I created, what you're talking about, is the kind of ambient chords underneath. I mean, the way I did that was by creating a patch that had a ton of delay, reverb. And so what I did was I played a chord, and something about the way, if you pick a chord and arpeggiate it, which means for non-guitar players, that means you just pick the notes in succession in a chord rather than just strumming it. It has a different vibe to it because the strings are reverberating differently. And I think what I just did is just pick the strings with the volume off, and use the volume knob to swell the chords in, and I just layered them. I did one at a time to create that. It wasn't real. I mean, it was indicative of a pedal steel guitar, but it was more ambient, more of a keyboardy type thing that had that kind of sound. And yeah, I just layered a bunch of chords. I think there was a little slide on there. I think the intro, so I don't believe the main solos me, but the intro and outro solos, I might have done some slide, but again, very, very difficult. So I just did my best.
Yeah.
But yeah, the arpeggiated chords came out really nicely.
They did. I really do think it's one of the things that really enhanced that song. And again, I didn't ask you for that specifically. You know, I didn't know that was going to come out. So again, you've interpreted it and you've created it And, you know, I know someone who picked up on that song a few weeks ago, and he just said, that is absolutely beautiful. You know, he absolutely loves that song. He loves the message of it as well, about speaking your truth, but he just loves that as a song. And there's, you know, lots of other people who've said positive things as well. So really pleased that you were part of that. And yes, I added some extra guitar work onto it. As well. I know you had some health challenges at the time as well. So, you know, we sort of got through it as best as possible. But, you know, I'm really pleased with the overall outcome of that. And it was important to me to have some different sounding songs on the albums as well. I mean, there's 31 songs. Right. As a songwriter, I myself decided that I didn't want to limit myself to writing in a certain theme. When I say theme, I mean like genre or style. I wanted to, you know, just go with the flow. So there is ballads on there. There's rock songs, you know, there's a couple of poppy, dancey type songs. You know, there's this country song, like I say, you know, there's lots of different styles there, all with the same, you know, similar personal development themes. But it was important to me to have some of those different sounds. So I'm really pleased that we did continue with that idea of making that country-ish, because like you said, you know, it's different songs for different moods and things like that. Right. So I know that obviously, although you've said for you that the music is more important than the lyrics for you, which again I can relate to, I understand. In terms of the sort of the subject or the concept behind the album, you've obviously said that, you know, you've got into personal development. It's kind of changed your life, enhanced your life. You've had your challenges with mental health, etc. So, you know, what have you got any comments in regards to this overall concept in terms of this personal development theme? Do you think that, you know, it should be of value to people or of benefit to people who do listen to it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everyone connects with content in a different way. So, you know, those that do resonate with lyrics and really pay attention to them, I think will get a lot out of it. You know, and it's an interesting format because typically self-improvement, you know, mindset, all that stuff is books, podcasts, you know, video. And I think, you know, obviously there's a lot of work that went into this, and it's such a massive project, but, you know, it's just a unique way of presenting, you know, the content. And I think the other thing too is the fact that it's music. People are more inclined to put on music as a background, which in some ways is unfortunate, but in other ways, if people are inclined to do that, it obviously shows that music is something that changes your environment in terms of the sound waves. So obviously, you know, if something's on in the background while you're doing something else, your brain is picking up on what's being, you know, put out there, and you can almost learn via osmosis by just having something in the background. And I think the message, whether you're listening to it actively or not, the message is still getting in there. So, you know, your subconscious mind is picking up on that. So, you know, I think it's great that, you know, if you're in the car, for instance, and you're not really in the mood to listen to a podcast and really actively listen to the content, you know, this kind of thing is perfect, because then you don't have to actively listen to it. It's on. You're doing your commute and you're absorbing the information.
Absolutely. Yeah, great answer. And I'd thoroughly agree with that. You know, we're recording this interview in the year 2020. In years to come, people will know about the year 2020 because we've had COVID. You know, this is going to be taught in history lessons, you know, probably in the future. So, you know, right now there's a lot of doom and gloom going on. And you're absolutely right. You know, when we're exposed to all the news and stuff like that, it's gonna get in there and it's gonna bring us down. Whereas you're absolutely right. Just having it on in the background can actually be beneficial. Yes, we can really listen to it and really absorb it and really try to learn all the concepts, but I'm sure, Simon, you're the same as other people. Sometimes you just get you hear a piece of music and it just gets into your head and you find yourself singing along to it, and that's how we get new ideas for other music, isn't it? We sort of take, oh yeah, remember that bit, it's all in there, and then obviously we can create something new from it. So I think it's a great point, and I'm really glad that you've made that there, that it will be beneficial even if you just got it on in the background. And again, that's been the feedback from people. Some people so far, some people have really resonated, really listened to certain lyrics. Oh yeah, that song really speaks to me. I play it every day. And other people have said, you know what, I just put it on. It's there in the background. It's sort of lifting me up, and it's all going into your subconscious. So that's it's really good. Thank you for you to say that. You mentioned podcasts within your last answer. So tell me a little bit now about your podcast, or tell the listeners about your podcast.
Sure. And as you mentioned in the intro, I mean, it's basically promoting the entrepreneurial mindset to musicians. I talk about mental health because it's important to me. And I think anytime there's a stigma around something, specifically mental health, it's good to have a platform to talk about it. I mean, on some level, I think, we mentioned anxiety. I was always really, and still to a point, I find it difficult in social situations, definitely an introvert. I prefer to have conversations with, one or a couple of people rather than, I don't like big groups, for instance. But I think I was always very interested in writing and having, perfecting my words before I sent it out. And I think the fact that I started a podcast was just my subconscious saying, hey, you need to do something to get out of your comfort zone and start speaking properly and doing this. But yeah, I mean, I the impetus of it was, I mentioned, or you mentioned that I was playing in a band. This was back when I was living in New Hampshire, which is for people that are not familiar with the US, it's north of Boston, Mass. And we got some success, but the thing that took away from it, other than meeting a bunch of musicians, some of whom I'm really good friends with still, was you can't make money through music because of streaming, all this other stuff. And I'm thinking, at the same time, I'm learning about mindset and entrepreneurism, whatever the word is.
Is it entrepreneur? Is it entrepreneurship?
Entrepreneurship works. Sure.
Right.
So I'm learning all this stuff, and I'm like, well, why don't you just flip that sentence around? Instead of saying I can't, say how can I, and just find the steps to actually figure out how to do it. It's very difficult. Not going to lie, it's one of the most difficult industries out there, but it is possible. And so, thus far, I mean, at the time of taping this interview, I think I'm on episode 86 released. I've been doing it over 2 years. And I just like meeting new people, getting to know their stories. Obviously, you've been on there a couple of times. And I interview musicians, I interview, entrepreneurs, business owners. I interview people about mental health, wellness, and anything that can be applied to music, and I think going into 2021, there's going to be more of a focus on resources and how to help people rather than just learning people. I still want to learn about people's stories and how they got into music and things like that, but I really want to focus more on concepts and strategies of how to help people. So that's going to be the focus going forward.
Interrupt there. I was just going to say, Simon, we actually, in my last interview with you, we sort of together worked on, I think it's a PDF download, isn't it?
Yep.
Giving advice to musicians who are interested in creating a project it could be similar to the Empowerment Songs project, any kind of project where you're working with other people, and it was kind of a step by, well, not a step-by-step thing, but there was lots of different bullet points saying, well, consider this, think about this, think about this, think about this. So that's a really good resource. Is that still available?
It is, absolutely.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. So have a look at that as well. But yeah, do continue.
Yeah. I mean, that's really it. I think I just think it's a really, I'm getting some really positive feedback lately of how it's helping people, and it's just a great way of connecting with people. I think, like I said, I've met a lot of people, and I stay in touch. It's difficult to stay in touch with 100+ people all the time, but it's gotten a nice. I like to, I even though I'm a metalhead, I like to go and talk to musicians of any genre. And that's a small tangent. I won't go into it too much, but I do work for a screen printing company in Texas, and we do a lot of work for artists, producing their merch. And I just spoken to one of my favorite artists that we work with, and he's a country artist. We obviously it's Texas, so there's a lot of country artists, and he even in his interview he said, "Man, I should make a T-shirt that says, man, I hate country, but I really love your stuff." And I think the reason why I like it so much is because there's so many personal stories. He talks about his family and his songs and his ancestors. I mean, the name of the band is based on an ancestor. And I just like the way he connects his music to his merch and the imagery, and it doesn't necessarily matter what the genre is. It's very, if you appreciate music, you'll appreciate the musicianship and the way people are writing stuff. And that's what I get out of it. I like helping the community, but I also like hearing people's stories.
That's amazing. Yeah, good. And I want to comment on a couple of things just very quickly, because obviously my interview. So if we want to do a plug, we can do a plug. So what's the name of your graphics company, Simon?
So screen printing company. It's the Skinny Armadillo. So we do shirts, we do laser engraving, embroidery, merch. We set up stores. So for a musician, hit us up.
Excellent. Good. And I like the idea behind what you said about your podcast, in terms of you did this initially for yourself to really get yourself or expand your comfort zone. And that's so important, isn't it? That people actually do that. And again, this is someone that you've been very open and honest. It's, you've said that you've suffered from anxiety, depression, all those mental health issues. So now you're doing something about it. You're taking action. And I can see some similarities in terms of the projects, the Empowerment Songs project, because again, I was looking for different wins. I said, well, I want something that obviously I'm going to benefit from. Absolutely. It's got to be a win for me in various ways. I want the contributors to get wins as well. That's part of the reason why we do these interviews. So, it gives you an opportunity to increase exposure, etc. And then I want wins for the people that purchase the albums, listen to the songs. They're getting those mindset transformations. They're getting all those benefits, etc. And we're going to raise money for charities and stuff like that as well. So, win. And it's very much the same with the podcast, isn't it? You said it's benefited you in terms of your own development. It's benefited, obviously, the people that you're interviewing, and also just the listeners. I'm sure that they'll get so many benefits from that, especially going forwards when you're really, working on looking at giving them tools and strategies and things like that. Just have a question for you.
Sure.
Has it helped you then? Because you said, you were someone that you're an introvert, you don't like sort of speaking in front of groups of people. Do you feel that it has actually been of benefit to you in your development?
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. I mean, I often think that, like we said about mental health being, having a stigma. I used to be someone, I'm from England, there's the whole stiff upper lip, don't show your feelings kind of mentality. And I think that's very damaging, honestly. And I think for a long time I was, the previous job I had before I came down to Texas, I'd be in my office. I didn't socialize very much, and I certainly didn't talk about my problems with anxiety and depression. And then I started the podcast, and the podcast came out after I left that job and moved to Texas. And just talking about my experience and my struggles made it easier. So, in terms of mental health, it really helps to talk about. I mean, you hear that, it helps to talk, but it really, really helps. I mean, if you don't have a platform, and I've certainly seen therapists, and I found therapists very helpful. It's definitely something, if you're struggling with, you should go seek out. But having the platform to talk about and share my experiences to show people they're not alone, and having that affirmation, I think really, really helps. But to your point, I mean, yeah, I think I'm definitely more confident after doing the podcast, because I'm, let's face it, I'm getting my own words out when I'm talking to different guests, and, having that, it basically, it takes, as someone that was bullied in high school, I think I'm mostly past it. I'm in my 40s, so I should, hopefully should have got past that. But, as someone who's very, as someone who's done a lot with mental health, I think, we all have things we can improve on, and your album is definitely part of that. But no, I think that if you're someone that has that bullying background, that experienced that, there's I'll give you an example. I'm rambling a little bit, but comedians say they go on stage and they start off with the thing that takes the power out of the audience, the hecklers. So if someone has a weird haircut, or they're I don't know, whatever it is about their personality that is the thing that people are going to make fun of the most, they lead off with that to take the power out. It's like the elephant in the room. They start off with it, and then hecklers can't touch them because they've already put it out there and they made fun of themselves. So I think having all this stuff out on my podcast means that, if someone's going to come and say, hey, you do this, blah, 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 I'm like, that's no secret. It's on my podcast. So I've already taken the power out of that and say, what's your beef?
Yeah, that's so true, all what you said there. And I actually heard on a podcast literally about a week ago about comedians coming forth and being, putting it at the forefront, just like you said, what their issues are in terms of, if they've got a bald head, they can make their own jokes about it rather than the hecklers doing it. So it's so true. I can also honestly say that when we are open, honest, and vulnerable, and talk about those aspects of our life that could be seen as a weakness, what we actually do is we turn that into a strength. And it's just like you said, that people can't then prey upon that weakness because you're being open about it. I do a lot of public speaking, and I share my story, and I share some of the challenges that I've gone through myself. And I do that for a couple of reasons. But what I've found is, just like you said, the more I do it, the less power it has over myself. When I started doing this, I could really feel those negative emotions. And yes, I can get myself back there, but it doesn't have the same hold over me. So I love the fact that you are being open, honest, transparent. And of course, Simon, not only is it helping you, but it's helping other people out there. And there might be people out there that are listening to this interview that what you've just said has really helped them. And, I really appreciate that. That's what I want to do in the world. I want to be courageous myself so that I can have a positive impact on other people's lives. And I have no doubt that you are doing that in various ways and various capacities. So, I want to
I hope so.
Honor that. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem at all. And also, you've said that, music and personal development being part of your life. And I think maybe, this is part of your purpose, isn't it? In terms of you've suffered at the hands of bullies, you suffered those mental health problems. If you now can, get over that yourself and can help other people in the process, what a wonderful thing to be working towards. So it's really great. Yeah. So we're going to start to sort of bring this to a close now. I will put all the details in the show reel or in the section so people can read them. But where can people get hold of you or find out about you or find out about the podcast and listen to that as well? Sure.
The main website is musiconyourownterms.com. It should be on every, hopefully it's on as many podcast platforms as possible. There may be one or two here that I've missed, but Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you listen to podcasts. And I'm most active on Instagram, and that's at Music on Your Own Terms. There's a Facebook page, there's a Twitter page, but Instagram is my jam.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much. And we'll put all that in there as well. It's been absolutely amazing to speak to you, Simon. Thank you so much. Thanks for being a contributor to the albums. I think you played a really, critical role there, really enhancing the albums. And like I say, I think from our first conversation, I felt connected with you. I like who you are and what you're doing. So thank you ever so much. I'm going to just ask you one piece of advice that you would give. It could be to musicians out there, young musicians, or maybe non-musicians as well. But, in a sort of single sentence or a couple of sentences, what one piece of advice would you give them?
Basically, if there's something you want to do, just do it. Don't procrastinate. And also on that, don't get comfortable. If you get complacent, you're not growing. So get outside of your comfort zone and just keep pushing. Like at the end of my episodes, I always say, keep pushing the needle and be excellent to each other. So, whatever you do, be kind. Don't negatively influence people or negatively affect people's lives. But yeah, just keep working on yourself, and whatever it is you want to do, ultimately just do it. Just get it out there. How do you eat an elephant? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Just start. No time like the present.
Absolutely. Great piece of advice to finish up with. So thank you ever so much, Simon. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. 3 quick things to do now. 1, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. 2, go to the inneranthem.com website and access your free video series, the 3-minute music life hack, so you can find out how to use music to enhance your life. And thirdly, get your own copy of the Empowerment Songs albums at the inneranthem.com website.